Phyllis Schlafly found herself being grilled by one of the liberal media's earliest torchbearers, Phil Donahue, on his self-titled TV talk show. Now, during this spirited, always stirring exchange, Phyllis maintained her composure and refused to be bullied or shrink before a host who oscillated between the charming and the condescending. Today, we would like to take you back to May 1st, 1974, for a bit of TV history, a day that Phyllis galvanized not only her argument, but the support of millions in the cause of defeating the ERA. Let's tune in, shall we?
Has there ever been an amendment to our Constitution that has generated so much interest? And people who never before are becoming political, are suddenly petitioning state legislators, are going to their state capitals and are speaking up. I suppose prohibition may have generated a little bit more interest, but certainly a close second would have to be the attempt to enact the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution, which has, for some many months now, been a priority of those who have become involved in the women's movement. And surfacing as the leader of the considerable forces who are attempting to ensure that this does not become an amendment to the Constitution is our guest on this program who has feelings about women, about this movement. What are the responsibilities of women? What are the responsibilities of wives? What are the responsibilities of husbands? Why are there so many divorces? What about the kids? We will discuss all these things with our guest, Phyllis Schlafly. Would you welcome Mrs. Schlafly? Well, where do you start with Phyllis Schlafly? Welcome back. Always a pleasure to see you. You're looking very well.
Thank you.
Boy, you've been busy flying around. You know, Phyllis, I've got to tell you what Gloria's been saying about you.
Oh?
Well, she said that you're flying around the country telling all women to stay home.
No, that's not true.
And you're a mother of 6, I want to make that clear.
I certainly am, and I think I represent what women today have, which is true freedom of choice. They can make marriage and motherhood their full-time career, or they can go into some other career if they want, or they can do both at the same time.
Do you really give them that latter option?
Oh, absolutely. I think the horizons are unlimited for women today. I think they can do anything they want to do.
Okay. I'm sorry to bore you with all these old questions, but just bear up one more time, just so that I understand you. So you're saying that if a woman, a mother of, say, 2 children, let's say 7 years old, for the sake of my example, feels just a little bit antsy, so you think that it's perfectly possible for her to go out and engage in a job without undermining her motherhood?
Well, many women do that, of course, and those of us that are depression kids, as I was, my mother had to work because of economic necessity, and that is true of a lot of women. And I think she's got freedom of choice. But I get fed up with the women's liberationists running down motherhood and saying that it's a meaningless, degrading career, and that the home is a prison from which women should be liberated and brought out into this wonderful workforce. Now, the home is the most fulfilling place for most women, and let's not run it down. And I also want to guarantee to the woman that wants to make marriage and motherhood her full-time career her legal right to do that. Because one of the first things that the Equal Rights Amendment would do is to invalidate the state laws that make it the legal obligation of the husband to support his wife.
Now let me just go back just a moment here. So are you really comfortable in the fairness of your characterization of the women's movement as running down motherhood and suggesting that the home is a prison?
Well, have you ever read Ms. Magazine?
Well, yes.
Well, they invite women into sisterhood rather than marriage and family. And I think it's very aptly named, you know. They call it Ms., and if you read it, the only thing you can come to the conclusion of is that its motivating, unifying force is the old adage, misery loves company.
So So Ms. stands for misery.
Ms. is for Misery Loves Company, yes.
Well, let me tell you what I really think.
It's a lot of unhappy complaints about unhappy women with problems. Now, everybody's got problems, but you don't have to look to the Constitution to solve it. We're able to seek our own identity and to have fulfillment, and the home is the most fulfilling for most women.
Well, my understanding of the feminist position of, for example, child rearing is that there are very... I don't think that there are more sacred, more fulfilling, or more satisfying a responsibility. And I think that feminists believe that. In fact, they are so convinced that it is so rewarding that they would like more fathers to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity.
Well, no. In other words, they want to shuffle off the mother's responsibilities, and they do, and do describe marriage for a woman as really dirty diapers and dirty dishes, and there's lots more to it than that.
Indeed, I think that most people would agree with you. Okay. You have considerable support in your fight for the ERA.
Oh, yes. We've gotten 17 state legislatures to reject the Equal Rights Amendment, many of them twice, some of them 3 times. And in addition to that, 2 states which formally ratified the Equal Rights Amendment have now rescinded it, which shows the change of heart that's come about.
Now, let's read the scoreboard. 31 states ratified.
Yes.
And 38 required.
Right.
Are you optimistic about stopping this?
Well, yes, I am optimistic, but I think it could go on for 5 more years, and it's a matter of letting your state legislatures know who has the majority of women. I think the majority of women are for us, but we have to let them know.
Okay. Now, let me take you back home. Now, you have 6 children.
Yes.
All of them are very healthy, well-adjusted.
Yes, right, they are.
Okay. Don't you think, generally speaking, that in this culture, and I'm not going to pretend that this is the first time you've heard this question, but I think it's really central. Don't you think that children get too much mother and not enough father?
Oh, no, I don't think they get enough mother in most cases. Of course, that's one of Gloria Steinem's themes. She's been spreading that around in magazine articles, and maybe she said that on your program, how kids get too much mother and not enough father. How does she know? I mean, if I were going to take up golf, I would go to a professional who knows how to play golf. And if I were going to study about the subject of motherhood, I would go to somebody who's been a success at it, not somebody who doesn't know anything about it.
So she's never been married. So she's never been married and she has no children. So you think that that changes her ability
I don't think she's qualified to say what's the matter with children, no.
Okay. But you don't have to be a sociologist, do you, Mrs. Schlafly, to believe that there are countless homes in America where the old man gets home at 6, 7, 8:30 if he lives in the big city, and he's dog-tired from his day in the rat race. And he's about as emotionally prepared to deal with the problems of his children's broken toy as he is to go out and play golf after dark. Now, he just wants to be left alone in far too many instances. And this is gnawing at the souls, I believe, of many mothers and wives around the country who love their children, who love their husband, but wonders why it seems to be that jobs seems to be his primary preoccupation rather than family.
Well, I think you show your love for somebody by what you do for them, not by words, you know. I think actions speak louder than words, and I think that a man shows his love for his family by bringing home his weekly paycheck and putting food on the table and paying the rent so they can live a decent life. Now, if he stands around and says, "I love you," and strums a guitar, I don't think that's real love. Now, you show by doing, and as the mother shows her love for the baby by changing his diapers and seeing that he's clean and fed and so forth, you show your love by doing for people.
Okay, but what about the absence? Well, does it trouble you, Mrs. Schlafly, that there is a significant absence of women participation in, for example, music? Why is it that there is always just 1 or 2 token cello players in a large symphony orchestra? Is it because women cannot distinguish themselves in music? Why are there not more women conductors? Do you think about these things, and do you think it's significant?
Look, if an orchestra wants to have the best cello player, and the best cello player is a woman, they'll take her. My sister happened to be a stockbroker, and now that's pretty much a man's field, you'll admit. They didn't care whether she was a man or a woman. All they wanted was for someone to sell those stocks and bonds. As long as she sold them, fine. But she gave that up to stay home with her 2 children because she thought that was more fulfilling to her.
So you don't think we're programmed, then?
No, I think the fact that more women are not in these fields is because to most women their family and home come first. And while they like to do these other things, they still don't come first in their lives. Of all the classes of people that ever lived, the American woman is the most privileged. We have the most rights and rewards and the fewest duties. Our unique status is the result of a fortunate combination of circumstances. We have the immense good fortune to live in a civilization that respects the family as the basic unit of society. This respect is part and parcel of our laws and our customs, which no legislation or agitation can erase. That women have babies and men don't. If you don't like this fundamental difference, you'll have to take up your complaint with God because He created us. The fact that women, not men, have babies is not the fault of selfish and domineering men, or of the establishment, or of any clique of conspirators who want to oppress women. It's simply the way God made us. Our Judeo-Christian civilization has developed the law and custom that since women must bear the physical consequences of the sex act, men must be required to bear the other consequences and pay in other ways. These laws and customs decree that a man must carry his share by physical protection and financial support of his children and of the woman who bears his children, and also by a code of behavior which benefits and protects both the woman and the children. This is accomplished by the institution of the family. A respect for the family as the basic unit of society, which is ingrained in the laws and customs of our Judeo-Christian civilization, is the greatest single achievement in the entire history of women's rights. It assures a woman the most precious and important right of all, the right to keep her own baby and to be supported and protected in the enjoyment of watching her baby grow and develop. The institution of the family is advantageous to women for many reasons. After all, what do we want out of life? A sense of achievement? A man may search 30 or 40 years for accomplishment in his profession. A woman can enjoy real achievement while she is young by having a baby. She can have the satisfaction of doing a job well and being recognized for it. Do we want financial security? We are fortunate to have the great legacy of Moses, the 10 Commandments, especially this one: honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land. Children are women's best social security, her best guarantor of social benefits such as old age pension, unemployment compensation, workman's compensation, and sick leave. The family gives a woman the physical, financial, and emotional security of the home for all her life. The second reason why American women are a privileged group is that we are the beneficiaries of a tradition of respect for women, which dates from the Christian age of chivalry. The honor and respect paid to Mary, the mother of Christ, resulted in all women, in effect, being put on a pedestal. This respect is not, as some youthful agitators seem to think, just a matter of opening doors for women, seeing that they are seated first, carrying their bundles, and helping them in and out of automobiles. Such good manners are merely the superficial evidences of a total respect toward women, which expresses itself in many more tangible ways, such as money. Americans were lucky enough to inherit the traditions of the age of chivalry. In America, a man's first significant purchase is a diamond for his bride, and the largest financial investment of his life is a home for her to live in. American husbands work hours of overtime to buy a fur piece or other finery to keep their wives in fashion, and to pay premiums on their life insurance policies to provide for her comfort when she is a widow, benefits in which she can never share. The third reason why American women are so well off is that the great American free enterprise system has produced remarkable inventors who have lifted the back-breaking women's work off from our shoulders. In other countries and in other eras, it was truly said that men may work from sun to sun, but women's work is never done. The real liberation of women from the back-breaking drudgery of centuries is the American free enterprise system, which stimulated inventive geniuses to pursue their talents, and we all reap the benefits. The great heroes of women's liberation are not those straggly-haired women on television talk shows and picket lines, but Thomas Edison, who brought the miracle of electricity to our homes. to give light and to run all those labor-saving devices, the equivalent perhaps of half a dozen household servants for every middle-class American woman. Household duties have been reduced to only a few hours a day, leaving the American woman with plenty of time to moonlight. She can take a full or part-time paying job, or she can indulge to her heart's content in a tremendous selection of interesting educational, cultural, or homemaking activities. In the last couple of years, a noisy movement has sprung up agitating for women's rights. Suddenly, everywhere, we are afflicted with aggressive females on television talk shows yapping about how mistreated American women are, suggesting that marriage has put us in some kind of slavery, that housework is menial and degrading, and perish the thought, that women are discriminated against. New women's liberation organizations are popping up, agitating and demonstrating, and purporting to speak for some 100 million American women. It's time to set the record straight. The claim that American women are downtrodden and unfairly treated is the fraud of the century. The truth is that American women never had it so good. Why should we lower ourselves to the status of equal rights when we already had the status of special privilege? The proposed Equal Rights Amendment states, "Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex." So what's wrong with this? This amendment will absolutely and positively make women subject to the draft. Why any woman would support such a ridiculous and un-American proposal as this is beyond comprehension. Why any congressman who had any regard for his wife, sister, or daughter would support such a proposition is just as hard to understand. Literature distributed by the Equal Rights Amendment supporters confirms that, under the amendment, a draft law which applied to men would also apply to women. The equal rights literature argues that this would be good for women so they can achieve their equal rights in securing veterans' benefits. Many women are under the mistaken impression that women's lib means more job employment opportunities for women, equal pay for equal work, appointments of women to high positions, admitting more women to medical schools, and other desirable objectives which all women favor. We all support these purposes, as well as any necessary legislation which would bring them about. But all this is only a sweet syrup which covers the deadly poison masquerading as women's lib. The women's libbers are anti-family, anti-children, and pro-abortion. It is a series of sharp-tongued, high-pitched, whining complaints by unmarried women. They view the home as a prison and the wife and mother as a slave. These women's libbers do indeed tend to break the barriers of the Ten Commandments and the sanctity of the family. It hasn't occurred to them that a woman's best escape from isolation and boredom is not a magazine subscription to boost her stifled ego, but a husband and children who love her. The women's lib movement is not an honest effort to secure better jobs for women who want or need to work outside the home. This is just the superficial sweet talk to win broad support for a radical movement. Women's lib is a total assault on the role of the American woman as a wife and mother, and on the family as the basic unit of society. Women's libbers are trying to make wives and mothers unhappy with their career, make them feel like they're second-class citizens and abject slaves. Women's libbers are promoting free sex instead of the slavery of marriage. They are promoting abortions instead of families. Women's libbers do not speak for the majority of American women. American women do not want to be liberated from husbands and children. We do not want to trade our birthright of special privileges of American women for the mess called the Equal Rights Amendment. Modern technology and opportunity have not discovered any nobler or more satisfying or more creative career for a woman than marriage and motherhood. The wonderful advantage that American women have is that we can have all the rewards of that #1 career and still moonlight with a second to suit our intellectual, cultural, or financial needs and tastes. And why should the men acquiesce in a system which gives preferential rights and lighter duties to women? In return, the men get the pearl of great price, a happy home, a faithful wife, and children they adore. If the women's libbers want to reject marriage and motherhood, it's a free country and that is their choice. But let's not permit these women's libbers to get away with pretending to speak for the rest of us. Let's not permit this tiny minority to degrade the role which most women prefer. Let's not let these women's libbers deprive wives and mothers of the rights we now possess. Tell your senators now that you want them to vote no on the Equal Rights Amendment. Tell your television and radio stations that you want equal time to present the case for marriage and motherhood. Thank you.
should say, well, congratulations. Thank you, Phyllis, and Phil, thank you for, but Madeleine Castle is are you a senior yet? Senior at King's College in New York City, and has been a teen Eagle leader and a friend and a wonderful. She actually initially did the Phyllis at school, and then Jordan Henry, of course, is the last man hired by Phyllis, and that's why anything that's wrong is Jordan's fault. But he's made up for it now because of this. We have now can hold him hostage on the photos of this. But this was they were working off a transcript from an appearance in 1974. They were reading the transcript, so you hope you picked up on that. We're really grateful. I think you saw the energy and excitement, the interest of I'm talking to you two, of everyone being here. The room's full. I think it's the biggest crowd we've had for anything, except I'm sure my speech. My speech was huge. There was like 5,000. There was like 5,000 people here. You know, it was unbelievable, huge, but much bigger than yours, and much bigger. Anyway, mine was bigger, but much bigger. Jordan, much bigger. You agree, right? Yeah. So here's what I want to say. Thank you so much. We're going to give you another round of applause. But then if you'd like to come up and take a photograph with Phyllis, nobody's going to want to take a photograph with Phil. But if you want to take a photograph with Phyllis and Phil, they're going to stay over here. And they're both, Jordan has agreed to stay dressed like Phil Donahue all week. So you can come by the Phyllis Schlafly Center anytime, and he'll be in persona Phil Donahue. So thank you very much, Jordan and Madeleine. Spectacular. Thank you.